In order for us to make the profits that we need to make for our investors and ourselves, we really need to buy a property for $1 million, and it needs to be worth $2 million within 3, maybe 4 years. That allows us to be able to get those returns to our investors and also make a return that makes sense for us.
Imagine building a real estate empire with zero tenants, toilets, or trash. Today's guest did exactly that, and he scaled it to over 5 million square feet of cash flowing freedom. So, welcome back to the root of all success. I am the real Jason Duncan. This is episode number 310, and my guest is Scott Meyers, developer, syndicator, and the nation's go to expert on self storage investing through selfstorageinvesting.com. He owns and operates more than 31,000 units nationwide, and he teaches others to replicate his results. Scott, welcome to the show.
The real Jason Duncan. We finally get to do this. Good to see you.
It's good to see you, man. So, Scott, what was the aha moment that convinced you that self-storage could outperform traditional rentals without any tenant drama?
Yeah, probably at the point where I dropped my pride and ego, thinking that I need to continue on in multifamily because I was a sophisticated investor. Because I couldn't invest in these garages on concrete slabs. But when I began to look under the hood of the self storage business and see how well it had performed over the past 25 years, this stepchild of the commercial real estate asset class, all of a sudden became the darling, and it became my darling in the portfolio. And when I bought my first self storage facility, the more I looked into it, I just seen that it had outperformed all the other asset classes. Again, right under my nose. But until I looked into it and bought my first facility, and recognizing that you can, when people don't pay, you lock them out and you sell their stuff to recoup up your money, and you get 60 days basically to do that. And then when the units turn, whether they leave or if we have to, in the rare instance, go through that process, the lien and auction process. When people leave, all we have to do is blow it out with a blower and maybe wipe down the back of the door and move in the next person waiting in line. No more waiting, for 30, 60 days like we did in apartments and houses to vet and move somebody else in. And so, call it those two things or those three things. Those are the light bulb moments where I recognize that, all right, this is it. We're going down this path. And we sold all of our houses, all our apartments, and went full bore into self storage.
What year was that?
That was 2005.
Wow, 2005. You pivot from
Mm-hmm.
residential or multifamily specifically
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
self-storage. In 1997, my wife and
Mm-hmm.
I were living in the city of Amite, Louisiana. We're from
Mm-hmm.
Nashville. We live here
Mm-hmm.
now, and we've been here most of our lives, but for a short period of time we lived in Amite, Louisiana, and we lived in a little townhome, and
Mm-hmm.
we had just enough stuff we had been married for less than 2 years, a little over 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
that we needed some place to store some crap that wouldn't fit in the townhome.
Mm-hmm.
And we went and put it in some self storage. And we remember talking to the guy because it was new. That was
Mm-hmm.
new back then. That
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, or at least new to us. We remember
Mm-hmm.
talking to the guy. I said, "Hey, do you make money on this? What's the deal?" And he goes, "How old are you?" And I told him, I said, "I'm 22 years old." He said, "If you do this now, you will never have to work another day in your life." And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do it, Scott.
I
My wife
know.
and I talk about that conversation all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So people should still get into this, even as seemingly saturated as the market is.
Well, that's just it. It's always a seemingly, and those are for the naysayers and the folks that think that they've missed the train or missed the boat. This industry, this asset class really became popular in the '80s, and so yeah, '97, we're still kind of in the growth phases of the industry as well. And so yeah, it is. We are not saturated in terms of a country. There is many cranes going up all over the place. You see facilities going up everywhere, but we do feasibility studies, as developers and certainly as syndicators. We're not just throwing these things up and, building it and hoping they will come is not a mantra that we live by. We know how to dial in and look at a specific trade area within 5 square miles and look at the supply index of current self storage that's already there, look at the population, and then also we have some demand factors that we utilize to determine whether this is a good market or not. So again, a market, Jason, is just, it's really within 5 miles, but mostly 3 square miles. And so, with a fair amount of accuracy, we can determine whether there's demand enough. And there's a whole lot of 3 to 5 mile markets, if you want to call them those, all around the country that still are underserved. And so, no, we are nowhere near being saturated in the industry as a whole in this country.
So financing a niche asset class
Mhm.
like self-storage back in
Yeah.
2005. That wasn't mainstream. So how did you at that
Right.
time
Mhm.
persuade lenders to bet on a big garage full of stuff?
Yeah, I my current lenders that I've been doing a lot of business with, they had, that I had great experience with them and done very well with our in our multifamily projects. But when it came to self storage for whatever reason, oddly enough, they said, well, you don't have any experience in this yet, and so we need to have a management company in place, and we'd like you to have a partner. And it's like, wait a minute, you'll trust me with multifamily and all that the headaches of tenants and toilets and trash and everything as you just mentioned, and you think it's going to be harder to rent out a garage in a metal box on a concrete slab with no tenants and all these other protections in place, but they did. And once I showed them also that self storage has the lowest loan default rate and the lowest loan loss rate, then they begin, to see the light. And then we sought out other lending relationships as well that are already in self storage and yeah, on their balance sheet and their portfolio within the bank. These were the best performing loans that they had, and so funding really wasn't that big of a challenge. I just needed to go outside of my normal circle that wasn't already familiar with it.
Well, today REITs are gobbling up
Mhm.
a lot of inventory. So
Yep.
where can a solo entrepreneur still find real opportunity in 2025 and beyond?
That's the beauty of this, Jason. I think you and I discussed when we were in Nashville that is the model. That is my business model, and so we are building these facilities, or we are buying existing facilities and expanding and making them REIT ready, REIT attractive, and so 50 to 60,000 square foot and above, something that is institutional quality. These folks, they are buying portfolios, and so that's what we do. We provide them a portfolio of 4 to 5 to 6 properties that they can gobble up in one fell swoop and add into their portfolio because when you add it into a REIT and their infrastructure, they've already got the property management in place. They've already got the websites, the marketing in place, regional managers, district managers. I mean, everything is in place. And so for us, it's great because they're going to pay a little bit more. They will pay a premium, meaning a lower cap rate and a higher price. So if they can gobble up, 5 to 6 properties in one fell swoop, and so, we love the fact that they're in the market. So they are our customers. They manage some facilities for us. It's rare that we buy any facilities from them because they don't sell very often, and they do trade across other portfolios or other REITs. But we love having them in the market. They drive rates up, and they're our best customer.
You build 4 to 6 houses in Mexico each year alongside
Mhm,
staff and clients and family. How
mhm.
has putting mission before margin shaped your business decisions?
It kind of began there, Jason. It's always been, part of what my wife and I were looking to do when we started this business. It was, I hesitate to use the word lifestyle business, but as an entrepreneur, you do this so that you can create a lifestyle and you don't have to follow all the rules of an employer. And so for us in the beginning, it was so that we could raise our kids and we could take our kids. We didn't have to take them out of school. We can homeschool and take them all around the world whenever we wanted and show them the world instead of through textbooks. And you can't do that unless you begin to create that lifestyle and create a business that allows you to be able to do that. And then second was to give back. I mean, that was a big piece of what we had always wanted to do. And so, yeah, that was, we found ourselves in a number of different mission um, mm, passions, if you will. But then we just landed on building houses with Youth with a Mission down in Mexico. We had gone on a trip. We were taken on one of these trips, and it wrecked us and it wrecked our family. And I said when we came back, I told my wife, I said, I want to do this. We're going to replicate that. And so we replicated that model, and now we're paying it forward. And yeah, we do that same thing. I mean, two trips a year and build roughly 3 to 4 houses each time, and we'll take anybody along that wants to go, and we pay for virtually the whole thing and open them up to a mission experience that is family friendly, and hope that they may decide to, the ripple effect will take place and they decide to do the same thing.
All right, quick break to thank our partner who makes this show possible, Dub. I use Dub every single day to turn cold leads into warm conversations and to introduce people. I love to connect people, and I use Dub to do that. In under 60 seconds, you can record a personalized video, you can drop it into an email or a text message, and Dub will track every open, every click, all the watch time, every second that they look at it, so you know exactly who and when to call next. And it can add 6 figures to your pipeline this quarter alone if you just start using the tool. It's that good. So are you ready to give your follow-up a facelift? Well, you can head over to therealjasonduncan.com/dub, therealjasonduncan.com/dub. You get 50% off your first 2 months, and you get a free trial, and you can see exactly how I'm using it. So now let's get back to Scott. Scott, let's talk about a controversial decision. You've said, I don't buy turnaround facilities, I create them. So
Mm.
tell us about a time that mindset nearly backfired.
Yeah, I would say, here's one where it nearly backfired. Yeah, in other words, deals are made and not found. There isn't a lot of low hanging fruit. This is a very popular asset class, but um, you know, we have to get good at the numbers. We have to get good at finding the value in these facilities, and that becomes being that involves being a very good underwriter. That's where we find the value in these facilities that can be created where nobody else does. And so, in order for us to make the profits that we need to make for our investors and ourselves, we really need to buy a property for $1 million, and it needs to be worth 2 million within 3, maybe 4 years. That allows us to be able to get those returns to our investors and also make a return that makes sense for us. And so we were heading into a property and a project in this one particular city in the state of Georgia, and all things were pointing towards this facility taking off and the city taking off. This was a very underserved market, very poorly run facility, mom and pop owners that didn't want it. They're very uninvolved and needed rehab, had some problems, but it was on a busy road on a major thoroughfare that was poised for growth. There was development coming to the south on this road with regards to residential. There was a manufacturing facility that was being named to come into the city very soon. I mean, it was nothing but, we were right in the path of progress, right in the middle of it. All things pointed for this thing going fantastic. Well, we bought it. In the meantime, the mayor was ousted, and the new one coming in didn't succeed in getting any of these developments off or wooing that large manufacturing company to come in. And that part of town actually declined. It got worse. And so we put all the money into the facility as we had planned to do. But the clientele didn't come, and we weren't able to turn the profit that we wanted on that one. We did better than break even, but in terms of our projections that we had made for the property itself, it just didn't happen. And that's one of those things, Jason, where it's kind of a head scratcher in that you're always betting on the come on what's going to happen in the future. And man, we were 95% certain that all of this was happening because it was already in the papers and everything was announced, and then none of it happened. And so lesson learned. We do swing for the fences on some of these. We're a lot more conservative when it comes to our investors. Unfortunately, we just had a handful of my close investors that were more like friends in that one. But yeah, that was a lesson learned that okay, we're going to make sure that these are 100% fully baked instead of a wet cement, which those plans were for all that growth.
So running nationwide deals while raising a
Mhm.
family, I can't imagine is an easy task. So what personal habit did you have to give up to keep scaling?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I think probably just saying yes. I'm a people pleaser, both in life, personal life, and in business. And having an education business and being an influencer, and then having the investment side of the business. I get pulled in a lot of directions, and it's real easy to say yes because it's everything's good for the brand, right? Everything's going to be good for the business, so let's just say yes to everything. And so I had to say no. I mean, and go back to the place where my wife and I decided that we are doing this business for our lives, not our life isn't this business, and the kids get the leftovers. And so it was I just saying no, getting practicing and getting better at just saying no to those things that even if they would, if people would ask me to speak all over the country on stages, and I just had to step back and say, is this really worth it? Am I really going to get the ROI on this? Because I don't want to miss out on a bedtime, let alone a baseball game or a dance or any of those those things that you just can't take back. And the reason why we did this in the first place, if we were not going to do that, then it did make sense.
Your one of your mantras is systems over self.
Yeah.
Give us a process that frees you from day-to-day ops and how
Oh
listeners
my
can copy
gosh.
that.
Yeah, I mean everything in the business operates that way. I mean, systems run the business, and we manage and tweak the system. I mean, we created, I read the book E Myth by Michael Gerber, and we've instituted all of that. Our business is a franchise without being a franchise, and so that starts at the top and goes all the way on through. Jason, I mean, everything is scripted. So at the site level, we can take anybody out and plug anybody in, and they understand the process, or they can learn the process. Everything is updated and is in a SharePoint, which is our filing system that is accessible online for anybody, real time. So, anytime that we create a process and put it out there, it's available to everyone. And anytime we update it, it's updated real time for everyone. So, I mean, any particular processes, I would, I, it's kind of a cliche or a cop out answer, but the whole process is that process, Jason. I mean, that's what we've just done with everything is we've been very militant in making sure that there are because there's just too many moving parts to any business, let alone ours. With over 30,000 units, it has to happen that way. So, the fact that we got into self storage to begin with, it is a low labor intensive transaction to begin with, which allows us to do what we do and at scale with fewer employees and fewer opportunities for hiccups and mistakes. And there is, gosh, almost no better business that you can just implement a system and make it run like a franchise and just replicate and scale over and over again like a self storage business. It's just not that dynamic of a business.
Interest rate spikes have stalled a lot of expansions. What
Hmm.
creative structure are you using right now to keep acquisitions moving?
Yeah, we just have to get better at underwriting, and we have to get better at finding deals that pencil. With the increased cost of capital, inflation is still, it's not going up and it's not changing right now. I mean, we're stagnant, but there's a whole lot of inventory out there. There's a whole lot of sellers that are, thinking it's 2022, and they're wanting 2022 prices for their property here in 2025, and it doesn't work at today's cost of capital. So yeah, we just have to work harder at finding those projects, and most of it is still. I mean, this is the time where when things do get tough, this is what separates the wheat from the chaff. And when everybody's running out, those that are smart and have been around for a while are running back in, and that's what we're doing. This is most people think this is the worst time to be developing, but if you look back in history, this is the best time to develop. And so the yield is in building value. If we take a piece of dirt and we put a building on it, it's worth more value. It's increased in value. And then when we put an income stream on it, it's worth even more in a prime spot. And so we've got less competition. We're moving forward as long as it pencils out with today's dollars and a budget. It's only going to get better when interest rates come down and cap rates come down. So it's just being, long-winded answer to your question, but just being more selective in the projects that we do, but also recognizing that we're not going to stop moving.
If tomorrow all self-storage units were capped at a dollar rent, what business would you build next and why?
Wow. Fortunately, I'm close to retirement age now, Jason. So I think my business would be, trying to get my handicap down in golf or something else. Gosh, I think it would be probably doing more of what I'm doing right now. We have an education business and we mentor people and individuals to get them into the business. I think mine would turn over. There's an old saying in the passive income side of the investment business that says you should never follow a syndicator. The jockey's more important than the horse. You should never hitch your wagon to a syndicator, unless they've been through a few recessions. Put a different way is that you should never follow a general into battle unless he's got scar tissue and he walks with a limp. And we got the scar tissue, and I got the limp. I've been through three recessions. We've been at this for a while, and we can see a little further down the road. And so I think high level counseling and consulting at a much higher level for folks that are looking to grow and scale a business because of what we've seen would be more gratifying. And then also having an equity piece along with that as well would be mandatory.
So, if you look back over your career and all the success you've experienced, what is the one key that has unlocked success for you more than anything else?
Yeah, I'd say it's just my diligence. It just really is diligence, and yeah, I have a system. It's pretty boring. My wife is just gets frustrated with the systems that I've set up for myself. Um, my alarm set at 3:53 in the morning, and I take a cup of coffee and I walk around my neighborhood park, talk to God, go to the gym at 5 o'clock every day, and I land at my desk by about 7 o'clock. And I take no meetings up until usually 11 a.m. in the morning. That's my thinking time. That's when things work well, and then I take appointments after that. I have a lunch that is carved out, and nobody takes that time away from me either. And I shut it down at 5 to go home to my wife and kids, and now just my wife because the kids are out. And I think keeping that discipline and scheduling vacations first, scheduling personal time first, scheduling the most important things like casting vision in the organization first, instead of letting you got to run the business instead of letting the business run you. And so I've just created that structure, and I've stuck to a routine and diligence with by time slots. And I've done that ever since the beginning, and it just helps you to keep your sanity, and it keeps everybody on the same page. My staff knows that things can't creep in. My wife knows when things can't creep in, but then also I've carved out more time for her and the kids than probably any other guy on the street has. So that's worked out pretty well for us, and continue to do that to this day. And I don't know that I'll ever stop having a schedule, if you will, to follow as I head into the golden years.
So, how do you personally define success?
Well, yeah, there's two ways of looking at that. So, since you say personally defined success, I don't know. Again, you can use some of the old sayings. I think at the end of it, success to me means legacy, and so I won't know if I'm successful or not until perhaps I'm looking down at my funeral and listening to the legacy that I've left behind and how I'm eulogized. So, they said success is, when the people who know you the best love you the most. And I think you've had a successful life if that's the case, because you could go through, as we're talking about now, business. You can go through the grind and never create relationships or take time for your family or friends, and we know what that looks like on people's deathbed, and you can't take that back. So for me, it'd be the opposite of that, and that's making sure that the relationships come first, and business was just a vehicle to allow us to have great experiences along the way and building those relationships.
What's your best piece of advice for entrepreneurs who are listening to the show today?
That changes from time to time, doesn't it, Jason? I think everything's situational, and right now, I have more insight into this because I have an education business. But I believe that what I've seen over the years is that there are an awful lot of folks that get into any business or treat any maybe challenging situation, even marriage, uh, without humility and without thinking that they can't learn something. And so I think the best advice is you have to be not just a constant student and curious. That means, getting better and understanding and looking at your craft. But I think you need to always be taking a step back and say, hey, is this right? Is this the right thing to do right now? Do I have all of the information and the data that I can to make this decision? And, what is the path that I should be taking? And, reaching out to other folks that have gone down that same path and asking for more advice and guidance when it comes to the big decisions, and then just overall in business and life in general. I think you have to have mentors that have been through a lot and that can see farther down the road to help you to avoid some of those mistakes and pitfalls. And there's nothing better than to be taken under the wing of a mentor who's been around, who truly wants to make sure that you succeed and do the best in life. So seeking out those mentors, and then again having the humility to then listen to them.
All right. Are you ready for our rapid fire questions as we finish up today?
Always.
All right. What's the favorite deal you've ever closed?
Oh man, the favorite deal I ever closed. This is it's an easy one. It's a boomerang deal. I bought this property, sold it for a massive amount of profit. This was the biggest building I ever bought, 200,000 square feet. And the person who I bought it from in the Great Recession was losing it, going back to the bank, and I bought it back again, leased it all back up, and sold it again for even more profit the second time around. So that is the best deal slash deals I've ever done.
All right. One metric that you check every morning.
The scale, yeah, the scale. And I do have a workout log, and, even still at my age, I'm doing my best to do at least 1 more rep or 5 or 10 more pounds on, everything I do and lift. Now, that doesn't always happen because sometimes I rip and tear things and, take some a breather, but, yeah, I have a log, a journal for everything in my workouts, and yeah, yeah,
All right.
that is the metric. It's a
I love
health
it.
related.
I love the transparency. All right. How about the last one here? Biggest self storage myth you want to debunk for good?
Oh gosh, that this is an easy business, and I just have to go with that. I think too many people think that this is a. I've heard it said that it's a set it and forget it business, and that it's a inflation proof and recession proof. In all of that lies the operative word, and that is this is a business, and you have to walk the four corners of your business, and you have to treat it that way, and not like a hobby or like a passive investment. So I think the biggest is that this is the easiest of all real estate asset classes, and that you don't really have to do much, because that's how we've seen many people fail that way. So if you can wrap that all up into one myth, I would just say that's it.
All right. Well, Scott, I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Mm.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell everybody where to get in touch with you, best way to engage with you. So do that.
Yeah, selfstorageinvesting.com. That's the mothership, and that has all the resources to, dip your toe in the water and learn about self storage, from white papers to videos, and all things on how to learn to actively invest in self storage or to passively invest. It's all right there.
All right, Scott Meyers, go look him up at selfstorageinvesting.com, selfstorageinvesting.com. You can follow him on all the socials. We'll have all the links in the show notes so you can follow him and let him know when you reach out that you heard him on the root of all success. Scott, thanks for being on the show today, man.
Always good to see you, Jason. Thanks.
All right, you know what time it is. It's time for another edition of JD's Public Service Rants. This is the part of the show where I call out the little things that shouldn't have to be said, but clearly they do. So if you're guilty of this one, well, consider yourself officially put on notice. Let's talk about the office microwave mess. So if your food explodes in the office microwave, congratulations, you are now the proud owner of that mess. The rest of us didn't sign up for a mystery splatter guessing game. Wipe it down, people. It only takes 2 seconds, and trust me, no one wants to spend lunch wondering if that crusty stain used to be spaghetti sauce or chili from last month. Well, that's it for today's JD's Public Service Rant. If you've got an idea for one of these, send it over my way. And remember, don't be that guy. Thanks again for tuning in to The Root of All Success. I've been your host, the real Jason Duncan. It's been an honor to host Scott Meyers as my guest today. Please go check him out at selfstorageinvesting.com. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you tune in again next time when I interview yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Until then, as always, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.